Hey,
Hello.
this might actually work. We'll see.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi,
I,
how you doing?
Good, thanks.
so this is the 173rd edition of our humble little audio periodical, and today we have with us Kevin Francis from the Left at the Valley podcast and radio show in Abbotsford, British Columbia. And do they still have
Greetings and
that air show?
salutations from BC.
Yes. Do they still have that air show in Abbotsford?
Well, actually, we were a part of CIVL 101.7 FM, but after running into a lot of difficulties with them, we decided to disassociate ourselves from them. We're now just podcasting like everybody else.
Oh, okay. That's too bad. And
Hey, well, we're in the Bible Belt of Canada here, so what do you expect?
oh, you think you're in the band? That's whatever.
Oh, we are. We actually are. There are more
Well,
churches per capita here in Abbotsford than anywhere else in the country.
we're in the oasis of Calgary, but take one step outside of Calgary, and you're in Jesus land, or as we like to say, Arkansas North.
Wait, that's a nice way of putting it. That's not usually what I say, but okay.
Wait, you're I'm nicer than you for once. This has
I
got to
usually
be.
say, butt fuck Alberta or something like that,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not so
Dear,
nice.
dear, 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 dear. Uh,
That's not
I,
too wild places. Like Canmore's cool. There's plenty of cool places, but depending on what direction you go, yeah, you can end up in
uh,
some interesting places.
yeah. So tell us a little bit about Left at the Valley, Kevin. What is its main
Well,
goal? Its usual.
wow, that's a long, and I'm not going to bother you guys with a very long answer. Essentially, we are a podcast that's essentially a atheist, skeptics, and humanist podcast. We actually try to do that. We have three different types of shows. We'll usually do an atheist-centered broadcast. The next show after that, we'll do a skeptical one, and the next one we'll do something more humanistic. We tackle a wide variety, and we like to think of ourselves as the podcast for the little guy, the normal. Because we see a lot of these podcasts out there. They're talking heads and they're very intellectual, but I'm nothing like that. So I figured, why not do a podcast with just the regular Joe? And that's a bit what we are.
Yeah, it seems like a fun group that you have going on in on that podcast. Do you tell us about your other co-hosts?
Yeah, well, oh goodness, we have a variety of people that join in and out of the podcast. I never want to put a choke chain around them because we want to make this fun. So my main co-hosts are Tyler, for example, who's a very intellectual guy. He's a very brilliant. He's also blind, so it brings a very interesting dimension. If you want to argue with Tyler, you better bring your A game because the man is good. We have our Nancy, who's usually does the segment of This Day in History, and she just took that segment and just brings history to life, and she always has a wonderful story to tell about stuff like that. We have a friend Alistair, we call the Reform, that usually brings in the news from the Valley, and we have Martina and Sarah and Connie that come in and out like this. So we have a wide variety of people that come in, and then they all
Oh,
have to endure me.
and you ride a hog too.
Oh, I do. I just acquired myself a Harley not too long ago, and I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I'd love to be out on my motorcycle, but geez, it's been the weirdest summer here. We've had so much rain and so much. Today, well, for us right now, just a few minutes ago, was a hailstorm, and it's hard to get out in this kind of weather. It's kind of a pain. We've had so many storms in the last couple of weeks. It's been very dark and stormy evening-ish, and fortunately, there hasn't been terribly much damage, but it's been quite. I don't know if you can't. I don't know if you can chalk it up yet to global climate change, but it's been a pretty strange summer period.
Well,
Um,
Calgary has always been known for having kooky weather, has it not?
you get incredible temperature gradients across the city. I've seen 15 degrees Celsius temperature gradients across the city,
No.
and when you get that kind of weather happening, it's something's nasty that's going to happen. Fortunately, not too much in the way of tornadoes, but there have been a number around central Alberta, and
Oh,
so
really?
oh yeah,
Oh.
We've had a fair share this year, but
We didn't
nothing.
get, we didn't seem to get all that much rain in June like we usually do.
Yeah, I
We
think we're
had a,
making up for it in July.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Been really-
Yeah, it seems to be a common theme here because this week summer finally arrived here in BC. This is the first nice week we've had in a
Oh,
long time.
I was in Kamloops. Come on, or not Kamloops. Where was I? Early this
Richmond.
year. Yeah, I was in Richmond too, but maybe it was just Richmond. I guess that's always quite nice. But you guys have the interior, the drier, warmer weather.
Yes,
Uh,
that's true.
all of uh, uh,
But I'm in the Fraser Valley, so Fraser Valley is essentially a rainforest. So it's always raining here most of the time, right? So
oh,
we get that rain a whole lot of time.
yeah. The trees. Have you noticed the trees are already turning?
Yes. Yes, I
I
have.
don't get
Yeah, it's
this.
like, no,
I'm in
stop.
denial. I consider it just a lighter shade of green. It's not yellow. It's a lighter shade of green.
Yeah, I
But
saw one or two and I thought, oh, I didn't see that. But then as I've been driving around, I've
yeah, my
seen
wife
more
keeps
and
pointing it
more.
out to me, and I wish she wouldn't.
Yeah.
Don't
It
tell me
only
about
just turned
that.
green,
I know, I know. It was,
because it was pretty brown. We had such a dry winter.
yeah, we hardly had any snow on the ground. I was kind of worried for the farming community because of the low level of there's very little snowpack, even in the mountains. But I guess we kind of caught up a little bit. We'll see. Hopefully now we're worried about whether they can have a harvest, right? So if it keeps continuing like this, it'll rot the. Uh, well, nobody's swathing yet, obviously. But, if it keeps going, it's going to be a big problem. And this pattern just keeps on going. Well, Stampede Week. Stampede Week was awful.
Hmm.
It was terrible rain. We went there on Friday afternoon, and oh man, Friday after. Apparently, earlier in the week it was quite a high attendance, but the day that we were there, we usually go to the Roundup Center where they have all the gizmos and stuff, and I got myself a virtual reality headset, which is kind of cool. But there was nobody there. I mean, there's just nobody there. And we went to Nashville North. Not only was there no lineup in mid-afternoon, there was hardly anybody in there, and very strange. Because it picked up later, but it was raining and not the usual Stampede weather, which is for the last number of years has been pretty hot, which bodes well for attendance. This year's attendance was definitely down, unfortunately. But oh well. Say Libby.
No, I've never had the pleasure.
The alcohol still gets you drunk. So, it doesn't matter what the weather is outside. So I just made sure I had more Tabasco in my Caesars.
It gets you drunk faster though if it's really super hot out, I find.
Oh yeah, well,
Yeah,
because you
yeah.
drink faster. You tend to drink faster. Plus, you're
Well,
more dehydrated as well.
yeah, yeah.
So I got a story to tell you guys, uh, and my brother's already heard this, so he can skip the next couple of minutes of this podcast. But anyway, have you ever watched the that television show Canada's Worst Driver?
Oh God, yes.
Once or twice.
Now there was an episode where the test was okay, you drive straight towards these big cardboard boxes, and then the co-driver tells you to stop, and you stop. Okay. Now, of course, the co-driver does no such thing. He doesn't tell you to stop, and people were going right through the cardboard boxes, and they'd ask, well, why didn't you stop? Well, you didn't tell me. Uh, so now, what does that have to do with this story? Well, I immediately thought of it after my father-in-law, who immediately thought of me when he met these people at a local grocery store in Manitoba, and he's a talkative, chatty guy. He's always chatting people up. He's very outgoing, and the couple ahead of him had 4 kids, and one obviously on the way, and so he was like, he commented on that, and the father said to his wife, "Yeah, when are we going to stop?" And the wife said, "When God tells me to." which is
Might be waiting for a while.
now you know exactly why I was thinking of the uh, Canada's worst driver. Uh, yeah,
Huh.
obviously, something quiverfulish. Uh,
Well, maybe
or
the guy didn't know it. So, I mean, he's asking where we're going to sit. One would have thought that that might have been a
they did
conversation.
talk about that kind of thing,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's obvious that
That's
God
totally
has no problem with overpopulation.
Yeah, um, it's just silly. I mean, why are you waiting for God to tell you something that when He's never told you anything else either?
fun.
Um, I
Well,
think
hold on. These people don't believe that, though. These people believe they do get messages. They just don't get a direct verbatim thing. They get a sign, right? And this is where this. Oh, this is a sign, and that's a sign.
interpret it God goggles. There we go.
Excuse me for waving my hands around, but I've got a very annoying tiny little fly flying around me. So if I look like a crazy person once in a while, that's
Well, you're in good company anyway.
Or you're doing that Donald Trump thing, imitating the journalist.
No.
no.
I, I,
Just
I,
a
I,
fly.
I don't know if you guys have been following what's going on in the States, but
No.
Everybody's following it. You can't take your eyes away from it. It's like watching
no,
a train wreck in slow motion.
what are
Hmm.
these people thinking? I don't understand that the Democrats are putting Hillary, and after all the talk and the emails and everything like that, we know she cheated, and oh, I just don't get it. I don't get
And
it.
it's still better than Donald Trump.
Well, I agree, but I mean, if you really want to win, you send in your best player, right? You don't send in the one that polls equal or loses in all the polls. You send the one that's been winning on the polls by double digits for over a year. But no, Hillary has to go in. I shake my head on this. I actually we did a show yesterday and I had a long rant on it. I just don't get it. I don't get what these people are thinking.
Well,
Yeah, that's their two best to
well,
run
what's
for
funny
president.
is the Republicans are saying we didn't vote for this guy. Well, who did vote for Donald Trump? I can't figure that part out. So many
Well,
Republicans have said we don't want this guy. It's very strange.
Well, the establishment Republican usually doesn't, but the grunt on the ground, the typical uninformed voter, because let's face it, that's exactly it. Somebody who just votes with emotion and doesn't vote with their head, they're totally for Trump. And you just go across the state line right here in BC to Washington in the more rural parts before you hit Seattle, and then there's Trump signs all over the place.
Sheesh.
Yeah, it's disturbing. It really is.
Well, I vote in California, and I'm only half joking when I say maybe I should vote for Trump just to teach them a lesson. Seriously, you actually put this guy up for display and to vote on. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. If you're going to do that, yeah.
Well, what bothers me with all this is, whenever there's an election, whether it's here in Canada or whether it's in the States, you always hear the same kind of things. The people that would say, geez, I wish we had honest politicians. Gee, I wish I had politicians that could relate to the people. I wish we had politicians that don't just talk the talk but walk the walk. They had all that in Bernie Sanders, a man that now just has a record to prove it, but also does the one thing that a president's supposed to do: inspire the masses. But no, they go with that bean salad called Hillary Clinton that can't inspire a rally of more than 500 people. There's even today to talk about they had to cancel a couple of rallies because she can't get more than 200 people out there. If you were electing the top bureaucrat in the country, I would totally say go for Hillary. Absolutely, she's got the experience, blah blah blah. But that's not what the president is supposed to do. The president is supposed to inspire the masses. He's that figurehead. You're not electing the CEO of McDonald's. You're electing Ronald McDonald. So you have to be that figure, and they don't get that. They really don't seem to get that, and it's going to come back and bite them.
It's a giant reality show.
It totally is.
Yeah, yeah. Scares the
Well,
crap out of me.
in terms of reality shows, Donald Trump certainly has the experience behind that.
And he's using it. He's totally manipulating the media. And
He's a brilliant marketer and a scammer. He's a brilliant scam artist, is what he
Oh,
is.
just look at Trump University.
Yeah, yeah. And he's managed to swindle this mass of people to buy into nothing, empty rhetoric.
these people don't care about facts. They're not like us. They don't care about facts. They care about emotion. They care about
You're
stuck.
gross and racist.
But going back to electing politicians that are honest, we've had our own uh, interesting bouts with that because remember when Paul Martin did the right thing and with after the Quebec referendum scandal, he created a commission that was headed by Gormley, who was a conservative, not a liberal, and he did all the right things. He was never implicated in the scandal at all, and he was punished for it in the polls.
Yeah.
So, do people really want honest politicians? I'm not so sure. Talk's cheap.
No, I agree. I agree. But I still think that the average voter is completely uninformed. I mean, we have so much apathy in this country, or even in the states. Most people can't seem to find 10 minutes to get off the couch to vote every 4 years. I mean, really, if you can do that, then how are you going to be informed about the vote? You're not. You're just going to go for the buzz line you see in the paper.
You got to have some pity for me because my riding is actually the riding of Stephen Harper. So
Oh,
it's depressing going to the polls for a federal election for the last couple of months. And yeah, now he's gone. He's leaving. He's saying adios. Very soon he'll resign from Parliament and leave a riding uh, unfilled, and it'll have to be another by-election, which will be filled by another conservative, I'm afraid. But
I sympathize with you, Randy, because right here in Abbotsford, it's also a very conservative stronghold, and all around Abbotsford, no matter how horrible the politicians are. I mean, we have politicians here that are trying to push back the debate on abortion, and people don't seem to realize that. They just don't read it.
well, Jason Kenney, I mean, his riding is next door, right? And he's going to be running for the provincial conservative leadership here in Alberta, and it's going to be well. He's very regressive in that respect as well. He's anti-abortionist. He's conservative. Uh, what more? You don't need to say more in Canada. I mean, there's been so many people in the conservative federal caucus that have tried to bring up a discussion on abortion. You're like, when does life begin? Well, that's kind of a red herring. Life began 3.5 billion years ago. What's your point? It hasn't ended since. It's about bodily autonomy. It's not about if I don't have the right to use your liver to sustain me if my liver is failing, a fetus doesn't have the right to use a mother as an incubator without her permission. That's it.
Yeah, but I don't think most people buy that because they look at a fetus and it's defenseless. So everybody goes for the underdog. I think you have a better way of approaching this if you start defining what a person is, and a person should be some sentience and there should be some oh geez, what's the other one I'm looking for here? It should be awareness and some sentience. So when you have a fetus, you just don't have these parameters, right? Because on another line, there are some countries.
A couple of cells.
Well, yeah,
It's not a human. It's not a human being in any strict sense of the word. It's a potential human being, but that doesn't make it a person. Certainly, the Supreme Court has defined what a person is, and a person is someone that's not in the womb, basically.
the debate gets even more interesting because now a lot of countries are starting to move to give rights to non-human persons. For example, countries like India, Ecuador are starting to give the higher primates, like dolphins, chimpanzees, are starting to give them human rights under the law, which becomes very interesting.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, rights are artificial. I mean, they're a construct of human philosophy, basically, and that's why it's interesting because we have advanced to a point where we can actually say, hey, it started with the Enlightenment, this idea of freedoms, and then also that went on to be an argument about rights and what are rights and what rights should we have, who gets them, and of course, a couple hundred years ago, blacks did not have any rights in the U.S.
Yeah.
And women.
And today they do.
And women. I mean, how long has it been since women have had the vote? It's.
Oh, women.
Yeah, whatever. Right?
Yeah, feminist.
It's actually not that far ago. I mean, that long ago. I mean, to my great shame, my home province of Quebec was actually the last province to give voting rights to women, and that was 1948. So it's really not that long ago when you think about it, right? You talk about one or two generations.
Quebec is the most progressive, socially progressive province in Canada, almost across the board.
Oh, today I would agree.
Yeah.
Back then, though, I think the older generation, the Catholic Church still had a good sway on them. And when I talk to some of my older folks, they still have those. I mean, I had this nice debate with my great auntie the other day about they were really angry that they were removing the nativity scene from City Hall, and I had to go to her and say, well, no, I had to explain that, you're secular government, you can't push a certain religion, but she was going with tradition. And I said to her as a trump card, and I said to her, I said, well, if you go with tradition, tradition was that women weren't allowed to vote. Should we stick with tradition? And of course, got her really angry, but these people look at tradition as a way to buy out, but what they really mean is nostalgia, right? They want the good old days of what they thought were good old days.
Mm-hmm.
But if you actually look at, we are a country with a constitution. That's the law. It's not mob rules, although we have a tendency to think that because it's democracy.
Oh, you hear that especially from Americans, that it's the majority rules, as if the tyranny of the majority isn't a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Randy, you said something a bit earlier that I kind of wanted to correct, because there are a lot of conservatives here who are not social conservatives, they're fiscal conservatives, and they do,
I
know you're talking about the politicians, but just in case people outside of Canada are listening, it should be, we have normal conservatives here that aren't batshit crazy, yeah.
So I'm speaking of political parties.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's not so much a correction as a clarification.
Yeah. just for the benefit of those who aren't maybe familiar with our context, I wanted to clarify it's quite different than the U.S. context in that sense, right? Although there are, it's the same down there. There's socially conservative, or fiscally conservative, but not socially conservative people, but their politics doesn't reflect that, right?
I just dream of an age where this is my opinion. It's only worth that much, but we took a conservative detour at the end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s, and we've been in that conservative trend ever since, and I can't wait for it to come to an end, because it's been a miserable, miserable run. This idea of, banging that drum of, free market, the invisible hand of the market, all that matters is money. We need to go back to a time before that, a time where people dreamt of what the future would hold for us. They say if you remember the 60s, you weren't there, but but if you look back at the 60s and 70s, it was a very positive time. People were dreaming about what the future would happen, space exploration, looking into science. And then when Reagan came in, which of course was Mulroney up here, and it was Thatcher in the UK, it all stopped. And all that mattered was get rich or die trying. And I see today that that's coming to an end, and I'm hoping it comes to an end real soon, because I think the capitalist system, we're getting off base here, but I think the system that we have, we've pretty much reached the pinnacle of it. We're going to need to move on to something better than this.
What system?
Well, our economic system.
What did you refer to it as?
The capitalist system.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I just didn't hear you properly.
I have a tendency to mumble. I apologize.
No, we've got a bit of an echo back, that's all.
Oh.
Yeah. Periodically on my end.
Having a bit of an echo. Oh, a big echo there for a second. I'm trying to figure out how to get back to the new interface, because I want to share screen when we come into some of these other topics. Oh gosh, how the heck do you do that?
Technology.
Old. Uh,
I've got it here at my fingertips if there's something in particular you want me to share that you put in the
oh,
episode notes. So I can
sure.
probably do that.
You
What?
want to? Can you screen share? Okay, like
Yep,
just to look at the episode notes. Open up the links in those. I just don't
yep.
know how to do that.
I'm just gonna.
And then screen share. So I'm
Okay, do we want to start with the more than 160 doctor-assisted deaths in Quebec, or?
Yeah, I think so. That sounds good. Yeah, it's one of my personal bugbears is definitely the uh, assisted dying situation in Canada. The opposition to it, particularly from the Catholic Church, which is the predominant source of any social policy opposition in Canada. They're quite vociferous, or vociferous, and well, uh, for the first couple of these news articles, it's more about what the state of affairs is in Canada. I mean, there's like what 150 or so in Quebec that have taken advantage of the assisted dying law there, which is actually a little more restrictive than the federal law, even though the federal law is well, I can only classify it as crummy. Uh, it doesn't. It only applies to terminal illness. The whole argument was actually demolished in the Alberta Court of Appeals. A tribunal heard a case for somebody with a non-terminal illness, uh, and still said, yeah, she can take advantage of it. The federal government's arguments are awful. This was before it was passed, and I'm actually surprised that there hasn't been a serious legal challenge yet from somebody who is suffering from something like ALS or some other not immediately or not foreseeably going to cause somebody's death. It's just quite interesting. Uh,
But
could you?
not entirely surprising, though, right? I
Can I
mean,
just interrupt and ask if you can see my screen?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, somebody with ALS is usually they're not rolling in dough and certainly don't have a lot of money spare aside to hire a lawyer and start taking the government to court, right? I mean, if there were a couple of lawyers out there that would work for free for these people that are afflicted, I'm sure you would see more of that kind of legal action happening.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the barrier is to seeking the legal. Uh, Maybe doctors are simply ignoring the Bill C-14 and actually supplying the means by which somebody can end their suffering. It's hard to say. They're now, and I agree with this, they're requiring that death certificates be tabulated. I think it's memory serves, it's British Columbia that's requiring it. I think it should be required everywhere because we need to keep statistics on this kind of thing, and just to generally see where this is going. Where do we want to take further legislation? And it's just something that's important information. I just don't want it to be abused by certain organizations such as Canadians for Conscience. I mean, like,
Canadians for Conscience.
yeah,
That sounds like it.
it's their conscience. It has nothing to do with the person who's seeking assistance in dying. And yeah, I find that when you make it all about the doctor, you in a situation in a relationship which is already skewed.
Asymmetrical.
It's very asymmetric.
Yeah.
The power lies with the doctor. You have to do whatever you can to put power in the hands of the patient. And this whole thing where doctors are, for Canadians for Conscience, for instance, it's all about physicians and pharmacists supplying the means for ending someone's suffering. It makes it about them. It doesn't make it about the patient anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
personally, I think there are two main things that really block this entire law from happening the way it should. Um, of course, the Christians are the mouthpiece, but the whole religious argument, I don't think, really holds a lot of water for the vast majority of Canadians. I think the idea that when you're asking for somebody to end their life, you feel like a murderer. I mean, even us right now, if I was to say, Randy, pull the switch on me, you would probably hesitate right there because there's a natural blockage to it. We have a natural fear of death, and we have a natural, even though most of us were had a religious upbringing, there's still that lingering, it's like that lingering fear of hell, that lingering fear of the consequence. And all of a sudden, you realize that something like that, an action like this, in the hands of a very good lawyer, becomes a murder charge. And I think this is what stops a lot of people from pushing this forward.
No one. Well, it's not. No one is
Well, people
going
are
to.
going to have to get over that attitude because,
I agree.
I'm sorry, but it is about the patient. And I empathize with what you're saying. I don't think it's unreasonable for a doctor to say, okay, I don't want to do this, but that doctor should be obliged to make a legitimate referral and not just,
That's the problem.
that,
Yeah.
that's, I'm fine with people saying, just like there's lots of, for one thing, somebody may just not specialize in that kind of thing and feel uncomfortable. Hey, what if it's not successful and you have killed somebody and that would be horrible, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, so I don't have a problem with referral as long as they, meet their obligations in that capacity.
Yeah. The problem is, I don't have a problem with somebody refusing to actually provide the means,
Hmm.
but they must refer. The big argument is that it's just as if you took part in the actual suicide. I'm like hell it is. It's no, it's nothing like that at all.
Well, I'm
Well,
gonna
and even if it is, you need to reframe your thinking around what's best for the patient and not yourself.
Yeah,
And
I'm gonna play devil's advocate for just half a second there, and put that hat on, and I think, do you guys think that if there was a law that said, okay, the doctor must pass on a referral, do you think that these doctors that would be allowed and comfortable to do this type of procedure would be very few and far between because of the fear of backlash from the general public? It's a bit like that transgender clinic. There's only one in Canada, and I was surprised to find that out. Is it because there's not enough demand, or is it because if you install another clinic somewhere else, you might get the torches and pitchfork at your door?
well, we kind of had that problem because Alberta has. Well, I don't. As far as I know, even now, there is no physician who is doing assisted dying here. They have to go to Vancouver. I don't think there's going to be a public backlash because I hesitate to quote statistics on assisted dying because to me it doesn't matter when we're talking about somebody's right to bodily autonomy, especially when we're talking about the may very well be the most important decision about whether they live or die. But in this case, 80% of people agree that physician-assisted dying should be there in some form. You can break it down at what level. Should we allow teenagers to access assisted dying services? Should we the mentally ill? And we're not talking about people that can still make a choice. Obviously, it has to be somebody of sound mind. But somebody who's incredibly depressed, who is it's intractable, and everything's been tried. Should that person be allowed to access assisted dying services? That then you start seeing varying levels of support. But I don't think you're ever going to see the same kind of lack of support or even voicing like shouldn't do that. I don't think we're going to see that. But that's just the way it is right now. Who knows what it's going to be like in the future?
Yeah, yeah. If I could tell you a personal story, my father passed away 2 years ago from pancreatic cancer, and I was actually there on his last day, and we took him to the hospital, and he was in tremendous pain. Pancreatic cancer is one of those cancers you don't want to get, because you're in tremendous pain. But I could see that, you know, although he was always very stoic in his demeanor most of the time, under the influence of drugs, obviously he was not holding back. I could see the pain, and I found myself pulling the doctor aside and wanting to ask him, "Listen, doc, not going to phrase it in any way, shape, or form, but I wanted to ask him, is there something you could give him to finish him off, put him out of his misery? We know he's going in the next few minutes." So this is an important fight, and the patient, of course, the patient has to be capable of responding to this too, but also for the family, because it's huge. It's a huge drain on them to be sitting there and be helpless. All they want to do is end the misery.
Yeah.
Yeah, one has to be careful because there are people that are very unscrupulous, family members, and I can't remember. There was an Edmonton palliative care physician that gave a talk at Centre for Inquiry, Calgary, and he's seen some pretty depraved people who just want to bump off mom. So one has to be careful about that. So it does have. I think it has to come from the patient. Period. I don't think.
I'll disagree with you, Randy, about this person. I mean, I'm sure it happens. People want to, cut off granddad to get the inheritance. But some of the stats in the Netherlands, I believe, have shown that it's less than 1%. It's one of those fears that is pushed that is essentially unfounded. It's not non-existent, of course. There's always
very small, sure.
But it's extremely small.
Kevin,
Yes.
did the doctor help out? Did the doctor give a little extra morphine?
No. It turns out that the minutes after that, less than 10 minutes after that, he was gone.
Yeah, because I'm quite sure it's gone on anyway if somebody's that close, right? It's the issue people are going to have to endure 4, 5, 2, months, whatever, years. Yeah, I don't know. Like in that kind of a situation, I don't know what to say, but yeah, it's kind of on the family because the person that is they're not that person that they were anymore, right? When you're that medically, it's like Alzheimer's too, right? Like that would be my biggest fear is to be set with, suddenly have onset Alzheimer's and not be allowed to still make that choice for myself. And then you become a complete stranger to your family and you can go on like that for years.
Well,
and sweet, lovely people can turn into nasty, horrible, awful people and vice versa.
Or just simply zombies too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's be often the case.
Well, that's one of the things that Bill C-14 did not address. One of the many things. They set up a whole committee with, oodles. They had oodles of fantastic suggestions. Well, not suggestions, but they're coming up with this is what you guys should do to make great legislation, and it was like the government just completely ignored it. And one of those things was exactly that. Okay, I'm diagnosed with early Alzheimer's. I can't, once I get to a point where I am not of sound mind, I can't make that decision anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to make that now and just say, when I get to this point, that's when I want to end it.
I will add, however, it is a mistake to think that we should be passing a law that's perfect, because it's always going to be stuck in legislation if you do that. When you pass a law, and it's usually very broad at first, and over the years, it's cut down and refined to a better version of itself with cases that happen. I don't think we're smart enough or proactive enough as a species to be able to write a great law to begin with. But if at least they have a law in the books, then we can start working with that.
But we have examples to work from. We have we have the Netherlands, we have Belgium, and we could learn from them, and we didn't. In fact, the law that was enacted is incredibly narrow. And that's the big problem in it. People with, for instance, ALS can't access this service, even though they're going to lose control. A Huntington's patient knows that about the age of 40, they're going to become they're going to start losing motor control. They're going to become literally insane, and they can't access this service. And they could have done a lot better. Those suggestions were there, and it was just a waste of time. So I'm hoping for better.
Yeah.
But,
Well, let's hope so.
Well, I think we were sort of talking about risks of being the type of doctor that would provide that kind of care. And if you can still see my screen, I'm going to switch to that article.
Yeah.
And scroll down a bit. Hopefully an ad won't come blasting out at me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, this is the religious groups that are. This was interesting because I'm going to put that up on my own screen so that I can. So the provinces vary on ensuring access to assisted dying. This is from the Star, and there was an issue in McGill at McGill University in their palliative care facility where they had a very inordinately low number of people accessing assisted dying, and they were saying, "Oh, yeah, that's because we have such wonderful palliative care here." Blah blah blah. It might have had something to do with the fact that you have to be there for 18 months. There was a bunch of other restrictions that made it almost impossible to qualify for assisted dying services, and that might have had something to do with it. And there's a real sense from me that Margaret Somerville is somewhere in here. She's not in the article, but I know she's somewhere. Do you know who Margaret Somerville is?
I've heard basically. I've heard from Wanda Morris, but my memory's a bit fuzzy. You might have to refresh my memory for myself and your listeners.
A so-called ethicist.
Yes.
In fact, she heads the bioethics institute at McGill, and I had a discussion with Laurie Moran about her in Vancouver at INR, and I love how he put it. She pretends she's not Catholic. I thought that was a perfect description of her, because first time I heard of her, I couldn't figure her out. I'm like, this man has Huntington's disease. He wants to make sure his children don't have the gene, so he went for genetic testing, or basically the in vitro fertilization with genetic testing to make sure that the children he and his wife were going to raise didn't have to guess. I mean, they didn't have to guess. I mean, gee, am I going to be going crazy at 40? He wanted that for his kids. And Margaret Somerville's coming out, "Oh, this is a terrible thing, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, what? How is this a terrible thing? And she sounded like we wanted to take people with these disorders out behind the woodshed to shoot them. And I'm like, no. It's not like we don't value the person. We do value people. Even, we have value all people, including people that have disabilities. And what we don't value is the disability or disease. It's I don't know. She's nuts. And so I have a feeling because of course it's McGill's medical unit. She's got her hands in the writing of those criteria.
Well, also let's not forget here that there are many Catholic-funded and operated hospitals across the country. So if all of a sudden the government starts imposing these kind of laws and the Catholics put too much opposition, and somebody comes in with the idea of, well, if you're not willing to follow the law, we're just not going to help you with money and funding. These people have a lot to lose all of a sudden. So I think they have to tread very carefully. And by doing it, the only way they could do so is to ensure the public is on their side. So they will use fear-mongering techniques.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course, that is the problem. Of course, McGill is a secular institution. It's not a Catholic one. But we know that in Calgary and Edmonton and Vancouver, the Catholic care facilities are going to refuse to allow assisted dying. That we already know. They've explicitly stated so. It's going to be the next big problem.
Now let's just hope that the trend that we have south of our border in the United States, the trend of religion getting into medicine a whole lot, like doctors denying access to health care, or pharmacists doing the same thing because of their religious conviction. Let's hope that doesn't come across the border, because that's exactly what's happening in the States. And unfortunately, as a country, we have a tendency to follow suit. So let's hope the population over here is a bit wiser.
Yeah. Well, we can only hope. I mean, we don't follow everything. For instance, AMA still think that male circumcision is a good thing to do. The CMA recommends against it. So it's not. We're not totally.
No, we're not. Well,
the World Health Organization is pro-circumcision too. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, because it's a very slight decrease in the chance of acquiring HIV. And that's it. It's not a very big one. I mean, you're actually way better off using a condom.
Yeah, of course.
And
I suspect it might also have to do with maybe a greater risk of infections if you have to keep that clean, and if you don't live in an area where you have good say water facilities and stuff like that, like access to clean water, maybe that's an entirely different perspective than the North American perspective, right?
Exactly. So we can tell to all the audience out there, guys, keep your junk clean.
Yeah.
She'll appreciate it. I guarantee
Don't circumcise you babies.
And your vaginas.
What's that?
And steam your vaginas.
wasn't it Gwyneth Paltrow that did that?
Oh,
yeah, it was really. I was reading something that she says she now thinks that it's absurd. It's ridiculous, but she can't stop doing it. Apparently, it's addictive.
Too much information.
Oh, I gotta ring the bell for that.
I'm just passing it on.
She needs to go to one of those parties where they sell sex toys, or like they have parties for women where I've never been invited to one. I'm very disappointed, but women will get together and they buy toys for their personal pleasure, shall we say. I think she needs to participate in one of those. Yeah.
So I guess we should tell the listeners, if you have any information on Gwyneth Paltrow steaming her vagina on a regular basis, send your information to Randy at.
I really. Actually,
and if anybody wants to invite me to one of those parties, contact Randy.
Hey, I tell you something. I know for a fact that none of these other parties has steamers available.
Has what? Oh, steamers. Okay.
Yeah,
I thought you said steamers because we're a little bit choppy here.
You can make a lot of money on the steaming.
Get the wrinkles out.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Kevin, not necessarily those of the Legion of Reason, Diversion, and
exactly.
Reason.
Okay, yeah. What else have we got on that? Anyway,
I don't know. How much? I'm trying to figure out when to share the screen and when not to. And can you guys see me when I'm sharing? And blah blah blah.
No, I can't.
Whatever you talk, the screen just appears. So.
Okay. So I can stop sharing, I guess, and
there we go.
I'm back.
Yes,
yeah. So yeah. Let me know what to share next.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right,
excuse me, Kevin.
I already shared myself. You didn't like it.
Sorry, what was that?
I already shared stuff. You guys didn't like it. I mean, it's all too hot and steamy for you.
Kevin, is that a frying pan hanging in your office?
It's a frying pan clock.
Okay. All right. I just had to ask.
That's okay.
Well, there is one more thing before we leave the assisted dying topic. This is from CBC News. Christians doctors group calls referring patients for assisted death morally the same. And we kind of talked about this, and thank goodness CBC no longer goes to Margaret Somerville for their medical ethics. They go to Arthur Schaefer, who we've had on the podcast, and of course, is he actually thinks he's not an ex-Catholic, and actually thinks from a secular perspective, and it's we've already mentioned it before. I mean, if you're not going to do it, you need to refer, because otherwise you are passing judgment on a patient. You're saying, "Oh, I don't agree about assisted dying, and I don't think you should have it either." That's a very judgmental position to take, and it's bothersome. Can you
It's
bring
amazing
that
how
up?
you're the judge for religions and not supposed to do that.
Yeah. Well, particularly when you're a doctor, you're not
Mm.
supposed to do that. You're not there to pass judgment on somebody. It doesn't matter what their weird practices are. You know what? If somebody's a drug user, yes, you can say, "Look, it's not healthy, and maybe you should seek help on that."
Well,
You're
and
not.
let me add to that doctors are held in such high esteem in our society that there is a branch of psychology that ascribe that a lot of doctors develop the God complex, is what they call, right? Because you're making such powerful decisions, and you are making life or death decisions. So your ego can kind of run away with that. So some doctors essentially making judgment on this is not surprising.
Yeah.
It depends on the kind of medicine you're going into. I think that's not so necessarily true of GPs and people that are going into more like family practices as opposed to
They
surgeons.
still do.
Yeah, I
Right?
would agree with that.
Yeah, yeah.
Something like, I won't prescribe birth control as a GP, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, it's terrible. So, and here's a question here from CBC. They asked, why has your organization taken a firm position against doctors making referrals for assisted death? And what they say is, we've checked this out with ethical experts in the Catholic faith and evangelical faith and amongst Orthodox Jews, and for all of those groups, making a referral is exactly morally the same as actually doing the act itself. Yeah, no. So for us to be forced to make a referral for this would require us to go against our basic beliefs, our responsibility to God, and to our fellow human beings. Where is the patient in all this?
Well, first of all, it's a secular country. That should not even come close to asking these people. And how come they're just asking the Abrahamic religions? They haven't asked any Buddhist. I don't hear anything about the Jains or anything like that. They're not asking. Why they're just asking the Abrahamic faith here? And it's a secular country. They shouldn't even be going there to begin with. And on
Yeah.
top of that, like you said, where's the patient in all this?
Yeah, where's the patient in all this? This is about patient rights. It's not about doctors' rights, right? I mean, we've already dealt with the doctor's right to not have to be directly involved. Referral is not direct involvement. I mean, somebody says it's morally the same does not make it so.
Yeah, well, it shows the stupidity of our society. I mean, it's almost like these people that say suicide should be illegal. Well, what are you going to do? Kill him? What are you going to do? Send him to jail? Or send his corpse to jail after he decide to kill himself?
Until 1972.
Yeah.
It was a stupid law. Of course, just as you said, it's a stupid law. One of the arguments I've heard is that we put all these barriers to suicide. Like we design bridges so it's difficult to jump off, etc. Blah blah blah. So it's just like assisted dying. We should make all these barriers. No. Suicide's not illegal. Just like assisted dying is not illegal. We do have barriers to make sure people are really serious. In the case of people that want to commit suicide, well, they're going to find a way to do it.
Yeah.
Right? You make
Has
it
that
difficult.
law actually ever been sorry. Has that law actually ever been invoked on an unsuccessful suicide attempter?
I have no idea.
That would be
I
interesting.
really doubt it. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
silly. It's an absolute absurd law.
I'm a big advocate of the suicide booth, like in Futurama.
Yeah.
I think you could have one of those. I'd be, put a quarter in and have it done.
Well, they had a Star Trek episode where there was a suicide booth, right? It was the
Virtual War. Yeah.
Yeah. That was one of my favorite episodes.
I can't do an impression of Shatner, so don't ask me.
Yeah. I'm a science officer, man.
I have a quick question. Can you see me now or the screen? Okay. I can no longer seem to share my screen. Seems to have been a one-shot deal.
All right.
I could like go off and rejoin again if we need to, though. So let me
Nah,
know.
it's okay. We can move on from here, I guess. This is kind
Oh,
of a
man.
surprising one. Uh, the BC Humanist Association put out a a piece saying human rights complaint over religion in AA to proceed. I, I can't believe that in Canada, I've heard this happening in the States, but in Canada, people are still being forced to go through mandatory Alcoholics Anonymous programs for their alcoholism. Say as part of their sentence for drunk driving. I mean, this is quite well distressing. It's
What, the fact of them being required to do treatment, or the fact of them being forced to go to AA? To
yeah,
AA?
forced to go to AA.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Because
Uh,
treatment I don't think seems unreasonable, but
No,
I
no
AA
treat.
certainly
I don't
is.
want to blame I don't want to blame the court for something like that here because I think what happens here is AA is very good at marketing itself.
It
And
is.
I don't think the lawmakers and the judges and lawyers are exactly aware of what goes on in AA. They just say, "Hey, it's the only tool we have." For a lot of people, I mean, the idea of going for treatment, where else but AA would you go? It doesn't even come up in the discussion. So I think the judges, I think, are when you're sentencing somebody to go to AA, they're doing what they think is right. It's just that the people that run AA have created AA were just very crafty and very good at marketing themselves, and we're suffering with that today.
Well, what they do is they hide the religious nature of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we just, one of the steps, one of the 12 steps is to that you believe in a higher power, right? They say, well, it could be anything. It could be a rock. I'm like, oh, who are you kidding? Really?
Well, if you have a pet rock from the '70s, you could use that.
Well, I don't think just believing in a higher power, it's actually giving it up to a higher power is, I think,
Yeah.
more accurate, right? To place your, I don't understand it because aren't you essentially giving up responsibility for your own
That's exactly what you're doing.
action, right?
Yeah.
You
And
give up
and who
responsibility.
could,
I am
I
powerless.
know some
You,
people, say it works for them and that kind of thing, but there are some people for whom that wouldn't work, and they don't keep track of their success records and that kind of thing. So we really don't know
well, they keep
whether
track.
it's less or more effective than people just going cold turkey,
Well, that's
right?
another problem, right? They keep track of the records that they have, or the records of AA. Nobody's monitoring them aside themselves. So of course, the stats are biased towards them, and the stats they have are people that are successful in AA that have stayed with the program. So it's a bit like saying, oh well, we got 100 people that finished the line and they all won. Well, of course, but you forget the 20,000 behind that never got there. And those are the stats they present to the court, and they look fantastic. So of course the judge is going to say, well, in the interest of the person, let's put them through a successful program like AA, but it's a fraud, and the general public doesn't know that.
Yeah, it's self-selection bias along with never discussing your selection procedure. I mean, you've omitted people from your study on the basis that they couldn't get to the finish line. That's crazy.
They
That's
never
that's
discuss the
that is
misses.
no way to do a study.
Yeah, they never discuss the misses. They always discuss the hits.
Yeah,
Well, that's just one side of the story, and
it's kind
unfortunately, there's nobody else that seems to rise up and challenge that except people like you and I that have these little podcasts. But in the mainstream, it's not there.
there have been some people. There are actually alternatives to AA that work very well. Much higher. It turns out that I remember an episode of Bullshit. They looked at AA, and it turns out that what statistics that are available show that it's really no better than quitting cold turkey.
Yes.
And there are better programs than these 12-step programs uh, in terms of therapy. There's I can't remember the book. I've got it somewhere on my Kindle. Uh, by
We
by
There's one in the States that's kind of like got a bunch of branches. I'm trying to think of it, the name of it. And then we had one here in Calgary too that Ross Mutton led,
yes,
um,
yeah,
Secular Sobriety or something like that.
yeah, that's
Hmm.
what it was.
So they exist, these programs.
I would be
Yeah,
curious to see somebody like the CBC and the Fifth Estate do a complete report on AA. That would be a very interesting show, I think.
Hmm.
oh boy, that would the hue and cry, the wailing and gnashing of teeth of the believers would be immense. Gary Busey would be up in arms. Uh,
Good one.
that guy's totally.
I'm sorry. I'm pop. I know who he is. I've ignored him
Oh,
successfully
he's
for
he's
a
a
couple
big
of
believer
decades
in
now.
AA.
So I didn't know that. Yeah, I just
Shock and surprise, he's a substance abuser. Gee, really? You would never have known that.
Yeah,
Um,
he's the AA version of Ted Nugent is for guns. You
yeah,
know, that's what he is.
exactly. It is right up there with on
wow, I
guns.
didn't know.
Yeah, he's
I'm
quite.
sorry. I learned that. I thought I'd successfully ignored him for quite a long time. Ah,
Sorry to bring you back into that.
me too. Yeah.
So,
Oh,
yeah, so apparently there's a human rights complaint now in BC. Ian Bushfield, who's the executive director of the BC Humanist Association. It's interesting to note that
I
he
gotta give
actually.
kudos to Ian.
What's that?
I gotta give kudos to Ian. Ian's been doing a lot of good work here on the
Yes.
ground in BC, and you really need to support that guy. I mean, he's been following Trinity Western. He's been fighting on different battles all over the place, and he's a good friend. So I'm totally in his corner for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is craziness. Especially Trinity Western. I mean, who, why should a law school that violates human rights legislation be
Oh
allowed to
yeah.
have, to have the people that pass their law school be accepted?
Randy,
Get it?
stop oppressing the Christians, Randy. You can't do that. They
Yeah,
have the right to discriminate against everybody.
yeah,
Persecuting them.
Jeebus told them they could.
yeah. Well, no, Jeeves never said that. Uh,
I'm sure he did.
somebody said that Jesus told them they could do that. That's the problem. They never
It
beat
would
their.
be interesting to follow up on the careers of some of these lawyers that graduate over, a period of time and find out exactly how they practice. Because, hey, just because you choose to sign some stupid, I don't know, whatever the hell, chastity agreement, whatever the hell they make those poor people do, does that necessarily mean that once you graduate, you're not going to conduct yourself properly as a lawyer? Maybe not, right?
Yeah,
Well, it's not very difficult. All you have to do is check south of the border. There are already several universities that have these kind of graduates, and these people have a tendency to get themselves into positions of power and influence policy. Whether it's Brigham Young or Jerry Falwell's University, or it's just horrible people. Pat Robertson's university. It's a tremendous disservice to the populace to have people doing policy and defending people based on a book that's come from people that didn't know where the sun went at night. I mean, just
But our legal
2016.
system is different. That might be like a state by state thing, right? As opposed to, we have human rights in Charter of Human Rights and that kind of
well,
thing.
the
You
human
can't
rights
violate that. And hmm?
human rights legislation is provincial, though.
Well, we do have the Canadian.
You
Sorry,
have the charter.
I know I got this mixed up in one episode and got in trouble for it. Yeah, the Charter, the Charter of the Constitution, the Charter that guarantees human rights. And if you violate that, that's federal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's also further legislation that every province has.
I
So,
guess, but I can't see any of our provinces getting away with the bullshit that's gone on with this, whole transgendered bathroom and these ridiculous things that certain states pass. I just don't think as a society we would tolerate that.
No, I don't
I don't
think.
know,
Bishop
but
Henry would.
what's that?
Bishop Henry would.
Well,
I want
that's
to meet that Bishop Henry. I hear a lot of good
that's
stuff.
why we marginalize him because he's nuts and right?
No, he's towing Catholic line. He's not saying anything that's out of line with Catholic doctrine at all.
Mm.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. And why does he get a platform? Well, because he's a bishop. Yeah, so I could say I'm a bishop.
Well,
I-
yeah,
I-
but I think that the platform is provided by the older generation when in their life, being a bishop was a respectable position. I don't think the millennials today would provide much of a platform to a bishop. I mean,
Yeah,
in that
yeah,
sense, it's
yeah.
hopeful. Eventually these I hate to say this, but these people die eventually.
Well, yeah, yeah. That's a very common saying. Randy, are you still there? Because you're frozen on my screen and I can't hear you. Can
Am
you
I
hear me,
frozen
Randy?
now? Am I frozen now?
Yeah,
Yeah, got a
I
frozen
can see you.
image. I can hear you now.
Okay.
So maybe we want to take like a 5 minute break and restart this because our quality is
Sure.
getting worse here. Okay,
All right.
5 minutes. Okay,
Sure.
okay.
So what are we
I need
doing?
another
We're unplugging,
I'm just
plugging
going
back
to
in.
reconnect through Facebook again.
Sure. Yeah, I'll stay around here.
Okay.
Well,
New beer.
I mean, the image quality is fine for me.
I'll be back in a sec. Oh, I wonder if this is going to violate terms of service with YouTube.
All right.
Good.
How have you been, Randy?
Been good. Busy today. It was cleaning the house.
Wow,
Big
the
way.
party never stops with you, does it?
Yeah, totally. I'm probably going to see Star Trek tomorrow, and
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I saw the Star Trek. It wasn't too bad.
wasn't good. Not good. Yeah, I've heard it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder when Christine will get back. Okay, she's probably gone out to her computer's in her garage, so she has to
Yeah.
go.
So how many episodes of the Legion of Reason Diversion you got there so far?
173.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, we got some catching up to do.
Yeah, I'll go back. I see a couple of episode numbers that got skipped, but because I'd forget which one we were on. But yeah.
Yeah. We're at, I think I'm at 76 now.
No, that's a lot. Wow. That's a lot of catching up.
Yeah, it's a lot of catch up.
And we got, I think we're in the near future, we're probably going to have John Loftus on again. His new book, which is a compendium of, just basically, I can't remember what it's called, Belief in the Age of Science or something like that, which is basically, yeah, science has pretty much demolished belief. In an intellectual sense, that's true. I mean, we've won the intellectual war. And next Saturday, we're going to play a drinking game.
Oh.
And I downloaded The Atheist Delusion by Banana Man Ray Comfort. And so we're going to have a set of rules set up. I haven't seen this film yet. And we're going to have a set of rules. It's a shot for certain things and a sip for others, because otherwise we're going to end up with alcohol poisoning. It's for stuff like logical fallacies. I mean, if he comes up and says, "Have you ever lied? Have you ever lusted after someone?" Well,
Were you there?
no, that's Ken Ham.
Yeah, it's Ken Ham, but still, he might still use it.
He might. Yeah.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned Banana Man Comfort there. I'm working on getting Eli Bosnick to come on our podcast.
Who's that?
Oh, okay. You heard of the Scathing Atheists and the God Awful Movies?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, he's the newest addition to these guys, right? Comedian, funny guy. He was at the Reason rally, and he actually licked Ray Comfort's eyeball. He took a picture with him and actually licked his eyeball. Crazy man. So I'm working on getting him to come on the show.
And who else am I trying to get? Oh, John Delancey. We're trying to get John Delancey.
Oh,
and I got to remind Chris about that. So
yeah, I'm gonna try also to get David Silverman. I know he's super busy, but
oh yeah, well, I've had him on a couple times. He's great.
oh really? I guess he's a bit more available than I thought. I thought for sure he'd be.
Oh, yeah, he just loves going on podcasts. So just get a hold of him.
I love Silverman. God, I love that guy. He's awesome. I love feisty, fiery atheism. I just love it.
Yeah, for some reason it strikes people, rubs people the wrong way, and I'm like, why? But he's not out there, telling people they're stupid for believing in God. He's just out there saying, this is a myth. I mean, this is it's so absurd to believe it, and yeah. I have this thing from Ray. One of the things when he downloaded this movie came with a PDF on ready answers for atheist questions, and it just there's Christine. She's back.
Yeah, I might be able to share my screen now too.
Back.
I'm back.
Oh, it's only still limit. There she is. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, this next one is a story of Islam on tour. This is something I think, Christine, you're going to have to.
I went on a bit of a rant. I'm really sick and tired of being propagandized to by, these organizations, shall we say, that are trying to give a softer edge and deny the reality, right? And okay, so these are Ahmadiyya Muslims, right? I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong. And they are peaceful. They're considered outcasts by the broader Muslim community to begin with, right? So they are infidels, right? In that context, I don't know. I'm really torn about that one because from what I know of that particular, I don't want to use the word cult, sect of Islam, they are peaceful, and I'm anybody who's peaceful that wants to do good in this world, I'm on their side, right? But I am getting a little sick and tired of the propaganda. We had that, what was it, cultural kind of thing that was kind of endorsed by our government, if I'm not mistaken, right? Saudi Arabia days or something like that, and people were making their henna tattoos, and they had all these lovely fun things to do. But people,
government, but yeah.
Okay.
Now I gotta ask, Islam on Tour, is that a rock band? Because
it's a mobile exhibition.
I will see right now. Everybody knows that all the best rock groups are affiliated with Satan. So these guys have much of a market to play with.
Not the Casbah. Or, well, I don't know. They don't have a Casbah, but rock.
I'm tired of it from BuzzFeed and from blah blah blah. Not that I paid too much attention to it, but I see the takedown videos. I'm tired of hair in the U.S. And this might not have even hit my radar if I weren't actually talking to ex-Muslims and people that are actually living in those closed societies who, because I'm with AAI. Sometimes people contact me and they tell me their stories, and these stories are horrible. The oppression, the violence, the threats of death that a lot of people receive that we don't even hear about. I'm just getting sick of it. I'm getting sick of this. It's a religion of peace. Like, start listening to people like Ayaan Hirsi Ali and get on board. And I got to tell you, I saw another video by Steve Shives recently. Oh my God! And I think one episode recently I said, I don't like calling people out by name, but bloody hell, wow.
It's a video.
Does he not understand that you can't be tossing around words like Islamophobia while calling yourself a feminist and shutting the fuck up about what's going on in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of this North American centric idea of closing your eyes. I think the people that come here really do. In North America, I think most of the Muslims here are people who have fled persecution and are honestly seeking a life of peace. But there is a radical element that exists And if I weren't listening to people like ex-Muslims and just listening to North Americans, I probably wouldn't know that.
Yeah,
You
Calgary's a
know?
hotbed for
Yeah,
extreme.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
I've got a question I want to ask both of you guys regarding your group. There, you said these people, these Muslim people, are more peaceful. Now, what should be the response from the secular and atheist community? These people, do we, for lack of a better term here, show the same kind of non-tolerance as a regular Muslim, or do we just take maybe a bit more acceptance towards them because although they're still oppressing many people, but they're not violent? So do we break down the whole Islam giant small piece, or do we just take on the whole thing
Well,
in one?
that's kind of a conflation of people and ideas, though. You got to be careful. I mean, we're talking about looking at Islam and the ideology, not
Hmm.
necessarily the people. It's what people do that makes them who they are. I mean, most people who are religious are better than their religion tells them to be.
Oh, for sure.
Whether it's Christianity or Islam or Judaism, doesn't matter. They are actually better, even though they might profess certain things like discrimination against gays. They may very well act completely uh, progressive. What they say and what they do are two different things.
Hmm.
So I try to stick to the ideology. Just, like these are the problems I have with the ideology. And if like let's take one of the quotes here. And he says, "We want people to know the good side, the true side of this religion. Islam is a very peaceful and loving religion."
Well, the good side versus the true side are two entirely different things, because if
True
you read
side.
the text, and I'll grant that I haven't read them in their original Arabic, but I've certainly spoken to people who have, and the doctrines say really horrible things. So there
Yeah.
might very well be there's a good side to Christianity, but there's also Leviticus, right? And I guess in terms of supporting individuals, like look at somebody like Majid Nawaz. I don't agree with the doctrines of the text, but I have to respect him for what he's doing. He's trying to create a world of peace and trying to reform the religion. And then there are other, ex-Muslims who say, no, the doctrines can't be changed because they're supposed to be eternal and for all times, and this is the final religion for all. Well, you have to listen to these people, and there's even argumentation within reformism, I suppose one would say, right? And this is what we should be listening to, not this propagandistic
Yeah,
bullshit,
it's
you know?
watered down Islam, and
Yeah,
it's not representative of the text of the Hadith and the Quran. The true side of this religion. I love that, right? The
yeah.
true
Can
side.
can it be reformed, or is it impossible? I don't know the answer to that question,
No, I
but I
don't think any.
appreciate the argument, and I want to listen to it. I don't want to be bullshit with, oh, it's a religion of peace.
Well,
Without it,
I, I,
maybe it has the capacity to be so, but
I think Islam is going.
fundamentally, and neither is Christianity a religion of peace if you look at the Old Testament, right?
I would totally agree with that. But I think Islam is actually going through what I would call "quote unquote" growing pains. Christianity had its Reformation, but at the time, the weaponry available were swords and bows and arrows.
Yeah, exactly.
Today, the Muslims are going through that same phase, that rebellion before the Reformation, but the weapons are much more advanced and much more destructive. So the weaponry and the technology of mankind has advanced, the mentality has not. So that's why Islam today looks way more devastating. But if we could have a time machine and go back several hundred years, we would find the same thing with the Christians.
Sure, there's a very tribal mentality in that part of the world too. Um, much more so than what Christianity went through, where it was more the societies were more structured. Um, you have a very different histories, cultural histories, and it makes it very difficult to tease out the religious and the cultural aspects of modern day jihadism. And yeah, I find it a fool's errand to do so. Period. Just part and parcel. Because a Somali Muslim is going to be very different from a Yemeni Muslim in terms of what they believe in terms of both their culture and their religion. So to pick it like
For
that,
Christians.
sorry, go ahead.
we can say the same thing for Christians. I mean, what is it? There's 40,000 different denominations of Christianity.
Yeah, but in America, I don't know if you could. Um,
I mean, Christians Catholics versus Anglicans and evangelicals. I mean,
which aren't very big.
Mormons, what do you call it? The ones.
Mormons not a real religion.
Yeah, somebody said to me, Ahmadi Muslims are to, Islam what Mormons are to Christianity, right? Except Christians wouldn't call them infidels so much as, oh, they're just not really Christians, right?
Well, a lot of Christians in the United States would call Catholics not Christians.
That's true. Yeah.
It's whatever.
I just like the word infidel. I just love that word. I think that's a great word. I want to put it on a T-shirt.
When you say it with it, you infidel.
Oh yes, I know. It's just I get chills. It's like, oh yeah. Almost be a hockey team, I just love infidels. Look at that.
Islam is a big problem in the world, and people aren't willing to. Well, worse than that, aren't willing to talk about it. They're also going to.
And there are people who can't talk about it. That's the other
yeah.
thing. If you live in a closed society and you're going to be killed for opening your mouth, somebody's got to take that voice up, and it falls upon us who do have that voice to call out bullshit.
And then you have Steve Shives who cries out Islamophobia the moment you actually start to talk about it.
Yeah.
That's the silencing tactic. I mean, it's not the only one.
So let me go. So let me go back to that question I posed a bit earlier regarding that more peaceful Islam on tour movement. So, as atheists, should we be listening to them or quote-unquote supporting them and their message? Or should we just put them in the same pile as Muslims are a bit more violent and say, no, it's about the ideology, it's all bullshit?
Well, they're not on that pile of jihadists, but to deny that Islam is a source of motivation for jihadism and Islamism is, well, it's crazy.
And I think there's a nuance in between there. You can listen to them and you can, interact. In fact, it's our only resource is to listen and to interact and to have conversations. That's our only tool. So we have to. So no, it's not fair to just dismiss groups or people or whatever the case may be. It's also not fair to dismiss maybe some of the good doctrines too. Although there's the concept of abrogation, and
Okay, well,
so you know what I mean, right?
I'm gonna keep playing devil's.
We can say, okay, look, I respect. They do the North American-wide blood drive every year, so I can respect that, and I can support that, and I can support their attempts to be peaceful. But I can also, at the same time, say, I don't believe your fairy tale, and that's okay.
I love this. Kevin's coming on our show and playing devil's advocate. It's kind of.
That's one of the things I like to do. That's one of the things I like to do. Hey, yesterday I did an entire podcast where I was actually playing anti-GMO. Now that was tough. Okay, so let's just say, for example, that we decide to be a bit more supportive of these quote-unquote peaceful Muslims, right? Down the road, do we undermine our own credibility when we look back at them and start telling them, okay, you know what, we got rid of the crazies, now it's you guys, you have to start admitting that your whole religion is bupkis. Do we undermine ourselves by being supportive at first?
Personally, I don't really care what people believe as long as they're not doing harm to one another. And like I say, anybody that's on the side of peace, I'm willing to support. And clearly, the people that have started this exhibition are willing to engage in that conversation. And if they're willing to, subject themselves to an atheist coming by and politely having a discussion about, hey, did you know this about your holy text? They're putting themselves out there in the realm of public ideas, and I respect that. I respect that a lot.
Yeah, but you know very well, as well as I do, that sooner or later, their policies and their faith is going to enter politics.
Already has.
Affect decision making, right?
I don't know. Do we let? Well, I was going to say the Mormons, but that's a really bad example. Because it's not that they get to impose, say, polygamy on, or say, oh, we're going to change the laws for polygamy. If we were to change our laws about polygamous marriages, it wouldn't be because of the FLDS in Bountiful, BC, right? So they don't have a political voice because they're marginalized. We don't, the only concern we give to them is that when they're doing bad behavior, right? we just ignore their bullshit, and maybe that will be the case. Like if you want to practice your own religion, and as long as you're not harming anybody else, have at her. It's fine. But if you try to impose it, in the public sphere on other people who don't buy into the bullshit, we have a problem, right?
It's already happening, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for example, how many debates have we had about wearing the burqa in a bank? It's already
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, here's how I
Yeah.
would handle it now, and I speak from experience because I've spoken with Imam Sawardi, who is a Sufi Muslim. I love this. He's the head of the Supreme Islamic Council of Canada, I believe it's called.
It's Sufi Muslim?
Sufi, yes.
No, never heard of that.
Sufism. Yeah, it's a very peaceful form. But they are not representative of mainstream Islam. I mean, but okay, let's just set that aside. And he's saying things like terrorists are not Muslim. I'm like,
Yeah, that's just not
oh,
true.
they're saying you're not Muslim. So which one
Yeah, yeah.
choose? What he's doing is aside from the no true Scotsman or the no true Muslim fallacy, we really should rename it because it's so often used in the context of ISIS and Al Qaeda.
No, it's now hashtag not all hashtag.
Yeah. You have to say, look, you cannot deny Islam is a motivation. I mean, just because you choose to interpret Islam a certain way doesn't mean these other people aren't doing exactly the same thing, and both are Islam. You can't deny this. It's like saying to a Christian saying, well, those Westboro Baptists, they're not really Christian. Oh, garbage.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't own your own problem, how is anybody going to solve it?
No, I totally agree. I'll even go one step further than you, Randy, because the unfortunate part.
Whoa.
Yeah, exactly.
These Christian girls hate me like that.
Oh, I just flip flop. I'd be a good politician apparently. No, but I'll go one step further in saying the thing with religion is there's always this debate whether or not, especially when it comes to Muslim extremism, and I would call fundamentalism, and I think it's more accurate. That it's more of a political, socio-economical aspect of the conflict and not the religious aspect. But the religion gives you permission to do these things. It's used as a shield, and this is the problem. If you just had a guy with even just a pure political ambition doing these things, he would be condemned really, really quickly by everybody. But that same guy starts using God on his side, or his religion, or his version of religion, and all of a sudden he has sympathy from a fraction or a percentage of the population.
It's a justification.
Exactly.
I would dare say that even, a small population, because we had that wingnut here in Calgary. I forget what his name is. Larry Heather, who was running for mayor, and everybody, he's who I'm talking about,
that
Randy?
guy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Nobody gave him any sympathy. Like, I don't know, a couple of hundred people out of a population of 1.2 million might have sympathy for him, but he's a nut. We don't like that shit here. And you might get a bit of media attention, but for the most part, you're going to get a whole lot more backlash than you are support.
You might have to fill me in because I don't know who this Larry person is.
Oh, okay. So he's kind of a I don't know how to even fill you in. He's a fundamental Christian who ran for mayor a few years back and just got no support at all, really. Maybe a couple, 300 votes. Maybe.
Christine, was he running when Michael Shermer was up here?
Yes.
Yeah, that was. Oh, I know exactly.
Yeah. And he was also at that protest that we did against what's his name, Jesse Rao. Now here's another one who ran for mayor. He's the guy, if you didn't hear about this, Kevin, he's the one that refused to drive the Pride bus, even though it hadn't been even assigned to him to do that. And so he got fired. And then he ran for mayor, and then they had this protest about how Christians are being persecuted because of this. And yeah, it's true, Christians are being persecuted, but not in Canada, right? And he went to protest, and Larry Heather? Harry Leather, I don't know what Larry Leather.
And that's a politician's name. I'm
Wow.
Harry Leather, and I approve this message.
He was like right up there in my face, and the cops kind of came around, but he was like pointing at me, like right up here in me, and just like scary dude, man.
Well,
Yeah.
Harry Leather has a very good waxing policy, I'm sure.
Sounds like he should be a grand marshal in a pride parade with a name like that. But he's not.
He was definitely a piece of work. It was a very strange panel. Okay, you had all the mayoral candidates, and Michael Shermer had a talk before that, and it was just very strange.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was this Q&A, and he was just all about Jesus.
Confronting Shermer, which went over just like a lead balloon, hey?
Oh, I would have loved to see that.
Yeah.
Nate Phelps and I were sitting together, and we're looking at each other like, what the hell is going on here? It was just very strange. And then what's his name? Lord? Jack Lord?
John Lord.
John Lord. Yeah, Jack
The
Lord.
late John Lord.
The late John Lord coming on and saying that fluoridation of water was the greatest hoax ever perpetrated on mankind. And I'm just like, what?
I thought it was climate change.
John Lord was a good guy, but he was full of woo and nonsense, right? But a good guy.
That whole evening was just surreal. But
yeah.
It's a good thing at least you guys had Michael Shermer there to try to straighten things out. Which, by the way, I actually finally played that interview, you and I, when we caught him at Imaginal Religion, and played that last week. So thanks again for helping me already.
Oh, yeah, no problem. It was fun at INR, so
yeah.
Had a good time.
I just love that picture you took of me and him arm wrestling. That's a great picture.
Well, we come to this. I think we're coming. Are we coming to it? Just the last. Yeah, it is. Oh, goody. My favorite seg on the whole podcast. I don't know. Hopefully, you'll be able to hear this. Oh, maybe not. I can't hear it. Come on, you stupid thing. And of course, it's not going to play.
Sound effects?
Sometimes it takes a while to spool up or something. I don't know. My goodness, technology is just. I have to play it. I have to do this.
I've got the article, but I don't recall there being any sound associated or video.
Oh, sorry, that's me.
That's you?
Sorry, that was me.
That was you, okay.
We heard it. Are you still playing it?
No.
I see, okay.
Since I don't know what sound he's talking about, I wanted to put the Pink Panther as we're waiting for Randy's
Sure,
call.
absolutely. Why not? Stupid thing. All right, I got to totally...
Do you have the Jeopardy song, Kevin?
I don't.
Kid.
On our podcast, if you've ever listened to the show, I have a tendency to put a lot of drops when we're talking. It makes things more entertaining.
It's good having a soundboard.
Yeah.
I like doing that.
Inconceivable!
You know what? Screw this. It's not going to play, is it? Oh, you know what? It's actually playing.
Oh, raise the volume.
Maybe not. No, it's not. No. Forget it. Screw it.
Well,
This
whatever's
is
talking about.
left files.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So we had.
Hey, if you share the link with me, maybe I can. Now that I've signed back on again, maybe I can run it by sharing the screen.
Okay, here's This is going to be such a fun episode to edit.
Put the link in the chat window and let's see how we do.
Oh, I want that one. I gotta find that one.
Reason.
Bering uses that a lot on YouTube. It's hilarious. Uh,
I can play you a drum roll if you want, ready?
where's the? Okay, where is the chat thing? Okay, here we go. Here's the link. All right. So this is Black Lives Matters again. And remember in Toronto, they basically held the Pride Parade there hostage until their demands were met. Even though they were given a honored position in the parade, it was a terrible. I think my understanding. I've talked to somebody in the LGBTQ arena, and they're pretty pissed off with Black Lives Matter.
If you want me to play it, let me give it a quick try. Do you want me to try it? Because I think I might
What?
be able to do it. Here. Can you hear that?
Nope.
Okay, never mind then. Sorry.
So they tried the same thing in Vancouver at the Vancouver Pride Parade. They want police participation in Vancouver Pride to cease. I'm trying to get my head around what it is that Black Lives Matters, and I'm speaking here specifically of the Canadian version of it. What on earth do they want, and how do they think they're going to achieve it?
Well, that's a good question. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put back my devil's advocate hat. And I'm going to say that maybe what they're trying to do here is, it's obvious in Canada we don't have the same racial black, white issue that they have in the States.
Okay, that's a First Nations issue, but it's...
Well, there are racism issues, of course, but it's nowhere near what the Black Lives Matter is. But I think what they're trying to do essentially is maybe get the public to notice. And if you want to get the public to notice, you don't do that by playing nicely. It's a bit like when you have these protests and they're put in these protest zones. I mean, those are people that are managed essentially to keep out of the way. But the point of a protest is to disrupt. So I can understand why they would do something like that in that sense. I don't think they have a very good target audience up here. Like I said, I don't think the message resonates that well up here because we don't have that issue.
Okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. Devil's advocate. Okay, so these aren't. So they're disrupting things. And okay, so what they did in Toronto was a disruption, but they did it to get demands. Now, one of those demands in Toronto was to have no police participation in Toronto Pride as well. And I'm just trying to understand what they expect that would be achieving.
I don't think they expect it to ever actually happen. I think it's a bit like Trump saying something very outrageous. It's not because he necessarily believes in it. It's because he knows it's going to get the eyeballs on him.
Mm-hmm.
But why publish Canadian cops or something American cops, and not all American cops, obviously, hashtag not all, but not all American cops. But, that battle, we don't have that same issue here. And so what is the benefit of excluding, Pride, at least certainly in Calgary, and I suspect Toronto and Vancouver as well, is a source of civic pride. Like most of the people who, no irony intended there, but most of the people who go there are not gay. Most of the people that go to these things are straight. And the police are not there as authoritarians. They're there as participants.
Yeah.
They're a matter of, like we all share in that, the civic union that event brings to our cities, right? It's not about, we're fighting for gay rights anymore. No, it's about we're celebrating I guess the subculture of our society. We're not fighting for, well, yeah, don't get me wrong, there's still issues, don't get me wrong, but I think we're affirming and supporting rights. We're not fighting for them anymore. We're celebrating, right? This
That's a
is
good
not
way.
a venue to fight and be divisive anymore. There was a time when it was, but now it's a time for us all to get together. And I brought my daughter there when she was younger. It's a family event. I don't care about people dressed half naked. Like, if my goodness, kids have access to the internet, so you can't pull the whole moral card on me. And
Randy,
it's a family event, and we
Randy,
all
please
love it.
notice. Randy,
With
please notice that as soon as she said half-naked people, she looked directly at me.
who, me?
Yeah, yeah, I want to point that out. No, I'm
That's
just
because
kidding.
I. Are you half naked?
No,
Actually, I can't even see your face.
Yeah, you're kind of in shadow now. I've got my suspicions.
It's like you're talking to a confidential
Silhouette.
informant.
Yeah, yeah.
yes, I'll just start masking my voice.
Yeah, get a distorted.
Okay, let me postulate something here. Is it possible that by doing something like that, the people of Black Lives Matter, either one, are grossly misinformed, which I doubt, or two, what they're doing is trying to rally some publicity and maybe exert international pressure? Because after all, the racism problem they have down in the States is systematic and from the institution of
But
government.
why would you place international pressure on a U.S. specific issue?
Well, I
Black
mean,
Lives Matter
you're
is,
trading
if you live in countries in Africa where it's predominantly black, you're not going to need a Black Lives Matter movement, right? This is a U.S. specific issue, and they've got quite specific actions that I think are very reasonable. For example, reforming police culture, making people wear body cameras, and I think these are very reasonable things, right? But it's not the same context here, so I don't understand how they could. Like, I get it that Canadians want to be in solidarity, and I would certainly support the presence of Black Lives Matter and media attention that they get. But yeah, what is the end game here? Like, do you
if you
want
have,
allies? Do you want to attract allies, or do you just want to be perceived as an asshole because you've shut down a goddamn highway,
no,
right?
I think what they
I've
want
said the same about Greenpeace and them hanging off the freaking Calgary Tower and shutting down the goddamn, inner city core during rush hour. Like, sorry, that's not going to win me to your cause. It's just going to piss me off, right?
oh,
You're
I
going to
can
get your
understand.
media attention, but you're
I can
not going to get
understand that.
allies.
If you had your Greenpeace not shutting down downtown the core that were just sitting on the side of the highway, you probably would not have noticed, right? So
Um,
the point of the protest was to get you
yeah,
to
it probably
notice.
would if they were to, go downtown with signage and do something peaceful. They probably would have got some media attention,
Yeah, but
right?
it's not quite the same, right? Most people would have driven by saying, "Oh, look at that! Oh, I still got to pick up some milk." But if you actually disturb things, now people get angry about it and they start calling the authorities and they start saying, "Hey, you got to start dealing with these people." And this is how they get the eyes on them, and this is how they get stuff to move. Now, I'm wondering here, are the people coming up here with Black Lives Matter trying to do the same thing, but on an international level? It would be interesting to see Justin Trudeau go to Barack Obama at some point and say, look, we got some Black Lives Matter coming to our town now. Can you guys start taking care of this issue? Because after all, we are the biggest economic partner at the same time. So maybe this is maybe the end game for what they're trying to do. It's just my opinion here.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I've often said, like, I don't have a problem with radical elements because I think they shift that Overton window and that kind of thing. Of course, I have a problem with violence, and they're obviously not doing anything violent, but it's silly, right? It's not to be, I can't take it seriously, and there are legitimate concerns that do need to be taken seriously. But when it's enacted like that,
Is it silly because
you
it's
know,
disrupting your life, or is it silly for another reason?
the tactic is silly.
The tactic works.
Well,
Did it?
I don't think it. I don't think it does. I don't think it's going to have any impact on Pride. We're all going to go about enjoying ourselves at Pride like we've always done,
But I don't
and
think
bring
it
our families and celebrate. And the
Yeah,
cops are
yeah.
going to be there celebrating right along with us, not trying to suppress anybody. What's the
The
point?
negative reaction of what happened in Toronto was huge. I mean, it wasn't at all positive.
Yeah,
Uh, Pissed off the gay community. Okay,
sure.
you
sure.
basically bit
Yeah.
the hand that's feeding you. Uh, they miss if this is their end game. They've hugely miscalculated in Toronto for sure.
It's
I
quite
think
possible. It's totally quite possible. Like I said,
I'll tell you what would be a good tactic is to, disrupt a 420 event, because there we have an issue. Legalizing, seriously, legalizing marijuana in Canada and, by consequence, the states would would make a huge difference in the lives of, people incarcerated for no good reason because they have a joint on them. That's silly. We all know that. So for them to have a presence at something like that, disruptive or not, I could respect that and appreciate it, right?
Hold on, are you saying that if Black Lives Matter came up here for a 420 event and stole all the Cheetos within a 5-kilometer radius, I believe that's one of the signs of the apocalypse.
Hey, you're stereotyping, you're presuming they're looting. They would go to the 7-Eleven just like everybody else and buy their Cheetos. Or they'd share, everybody passes the Cheetos, everybody,
Especially burritos as well.
And besides, we have Old Dutch here. And coffee crisp. You can have ketchup. They could have ketchup flavored chips here, or pickle flavored chips here.
That's true. You can't get flavored chips in the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a very interesting show about 2 months ago with Jodie Emery, so that was fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's actually quite a hoot. I'm pretty sure she was high for the interview too, but that's okay.
Well, where are we at here? We're gonna shut her down.
Sure, my friend. You tell me.
Well, we've been at this almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, been a good hangout. I like this. It's a lot. When I edit videos, it's like 8 hours of work.
Oh God, yeah.
It's a huge undertaking because I'm putting in all the websites and stuff that we use, and it's
editing the videos. Oh, this is a video cast? Oh my God, I've been picking my nose all this time.
We were live too, weren't we?
Yeah,
we are live.
Nobody's watching, but we're live.
Okay.
So that brings up the question: if nobody's watching, is this actually a podcast? Is somebody doing a podcast?
Well, if we're gonna
falling forest.
God's watching.
God's watching.
When we put it out there, hopefully people will listen. What's our listenership these days? Do you know?
No idea.
Okay.
Well, I'm a subscriber. I follow you guys and I listen.
Oh, thank you. You're the one. Eh? Okay.
Oh, I'm that one guy.
No, I just don't really care because it's not about listenership. It's never been that. It's been about it's therapy, like I say.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, yes. And there's something fantastic about this day and age. What I tell a lot of people is because some people ask me, why do you do this? And if you have a conversation with your grandfather, or try to remember a conversation with your grandfather, your grandmother, or your great-grandfather, you don't really know what they thought about things. You have some vague souvenirs, some, cherished moments you had at dinner, but you don't know their opinion on a lot of subjects of their time or of this time. The thing about recording and broadcasting, it's out there forever. 200 years down the road, somebody might look up what Randy Tyson thought about Donald Trump. And it's out there forever, and there's something it's the closest thing to immortality at this point.
That's a good point. I hadn't really thought of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It always comes back to haunt you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm more worried about saying something stupid or, yeah. And certainly changing my mind over things, like, my thinking hones over time, and I get, hopefully more clear in my thoughts, sometimes less, That's just the growth of an individual too, and that's maybe worth recording, right? Yeah.
Maybe somebody thinks it's worth listening to. I just think I have something to say, and that's why I do it. And if it stopped being fun, then I wouldn't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Over. But
I gotta send out an invitation to both of you. I hope you guys come on our show soon, Rainey and my dear. You're always welcome back. Well, I haven't had you, but I had Randy on at least.
I think a privilege and honor. Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. That'd be great to invite both of you guys, and you'll join and hang, and you'll be in my grasp.
And I'll play devil's advocate to you.
Yeah. You can play devil's advocate to
me. Fuck, man. So no, it's been great. So tell people again where they can find your podcast.
Yeah, well, if the listeners of the Supreme and Reverend Dr. Randy Tyson would like to follow another podcast that's out of BC, the show is called Left at the Valley. It's out of Abbotsford, BC. The best way to find us, you can find us on Facebook. We got a couple of pages. You can follow us on Twitter. The best way to go is leftatthevalley.com. We're broadcasting on YouTube and Spreaker and Blog Talk Radio and SoundCloud. I would suggest stay with the more recent shows because our first shows are pretty rough. We're no experts, but if you like our wacky sense of humor, you're always welcome to join us.
Okay, you got to say Legion of Reason Diversion rocks now.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I did it for you.
Yeah, totally. So, all right, my name is Kevin from the Left of the Valley Radio Podcast, and I had the supreme pleasure of hanging with Randy Tyson and Christine on the Legion of Reason Diversion, and they rock.
Good. Yep. First one, number one. Yay! We're gonna
Ringing the bell for you guys.
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah, awesome.
That was fun. Thank you.
That's fun. Yeah.
As always.